For some time now, I had been thinking about how much more my dancing body would be able to reveal to me in artistic terms. That is, at this stage of my life, how long it could still satisfy me artistically. My search began when I started working with the diversely abled. Could I possibly pass on to them something as joy-giving as dance, and would dance be useful to their world? I didn't know, so I danced for them, they responded and danced for me. The secret, if there was one, was whether they could be coaxed to make this new journey. The youngsters would have to make a physical space within themselves to give and receive this nonverbal language. What do I remember of my infancy? Above all, I remember my father. He was my best friend and, so to say, my accomplice in crime. My mother's role was that of educator and guide, a wonderful person. She was hard-working, heavily built, leaving my father in charge of outings to the zoo, circus, music hall, and movies. My mother, seeing me in these photos hugging a chimp and being hugged by an orangutan, almost fainted. How could you be so trusting with our daughter? I protested to protect him because I adored his way with me. We were always at my uncle's farm. Puppies, horses, his pet crow were my delight, and there started my love for animals and for nature. At the same time, I must have been about 3 years old, I wanted a tutu made by mother, and to dance as all little girls do. This moving in a dance-like manner was with me all the time, accompanied by my playing an imaginary piano whenever seated at table. When I reached 10 years of age, the fever had taken over, and I tried to persuade mother to allow me to be a serious dancer. She, hoping this would pass, however, agreed to consider the idea. 2 years later, she reconsidered, and I begged her to find me a ballet school, otherwise I would run away and find one myself, I suppose. Mother, being an academically inclined person, was quite uninformed as to respected dance academies. Nevertheless, we found one, and we were told that I would have to be ready to train all day long, as well as on Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, for the full 6 years. I was ready, but the truth was that at this time it meant leaving school. Mother and headmaster were aghast at the idea, but the law was on my side. Only much later was academic schooling introduced into the full-time dance curriculum. And so my training started. My teacher, Letty Littlewood, a fine woman, had been a member of the Ninette de Valois Ballet Group in Regent's Park, London, and was therefore steeped in the tradition of British ballet, an excellent school for a young dancer. By then, I had a young sister whom I plagued to be a dancer, but who hastily gave up classes when the rigors of training would have interfered with fun and Saturday movies. The Associated Arts School, my school, was highly respected, traditional, and therefore not open to influence outside the classical ballet world. However, during my training, Dr. Hugo Fischer, a passionate dance and art scholar, often watched class and was interested in broadening my cultural education, and so started what was for me a deeper view of dance. Dr. Fischer was a philosopher and lecturer at the University of Munich, immersed in aesthetics, and he spoke to me of beauty, music, and particular of Rudolf von Laban, whom he knew well. I knew nothing of that formidable person. Hugo Fischer took me to meet Laban at his Centre for Culture and Dance on the outskirts of London, considering this an essential move for completing my studies. German culture and dance were far from our thoughts, having only recently left the war years behind, and expressionist dance was not dance because it was not ballet. Fortunately, Dr. Fischer was there to instruct otherwise and urged me to study further afield. I began classes at an excellent school of Russian ballet, open to wider influences, systematic floor work, yoga, and above all, the masterly approach of Laban and Labanotation. I majored in ballet with honours at the Royal Academy of Dance, London, and my final perfection studies were with Vera Volkova in London and Preobrazhenska and Egorova in Paris. I became a member of a small group, the Ambassador Ballet, and was coached in classical roles by Nicholas Beryosov and George Goncharov. We appeared for a season at the Ambigu Theatre in Paris. Other contracts came to a sticky end as our agent ran off with our pay and passports, and we were flown back to England by kind courtesy of the British Council. The company, of course, disbanded, and work was urgent. I replied to an advert in Dance Magazine, and along with 7 other dancers, we formed a group to tour. Arriving in Sicily, I remember seeing only men at our performances, Coppoletti covering their dark eyes in total silence. We were accompanied to and from our hotel, and also accompanied by our agent each time we went out. Our performance was entirely proper, and we thought this an insult, although somewhat amusing. The tour came to an end, and I had the opportunity to go to America, during which time I married. I needed a wider dance experience and found this in New York, studying with Merce Cunningham. His was the perfect antithesis to my traditional training, and so I became totally immersed in this exciting adult world of dance. I left the States once again hoping to find in Italy a situation affording artistic satisfaction. Television hadn't yet arrived in the homes, and I remember how we, a group of foreign dancers, opened the very first television studios in Rome's Via del Babuino. Just one fixed camera around which we danced. Very soon, however, the new studios of Via Teolada were inaugurated and became almost a home for trained dancers, who were assured of being recalled over the years, and so it was. One of the many well-known choreographers engaged was Mary Anthony from New York, and this, in a sense, was my watershed. Everything I'd done before fell into place and took on a deeper meaning. Mary's classes were revealing on many levels, and I realized the strength of her outlook was something I'd been waiting for. She didn't speak Italian, and thus I was able to translate, and so started a natural friendship. She was warm, open, intelligent, yet very rigorous in her discipline. Her television contract was to prepare the weekly ballet and short sketches. She found it impossible to produce her ballet when music, costumes, and studio time appeared the day before performance. Everything then was live. At this point, a young choreographer, Gino Landi, stepped in to do the sketches and did well. We, in the meantime, took classes, and they became a daily study in her sublime technique. I was chosen as Antony's lead dancer. Her ability to transmit drama, emotion, comedy through her art was totally convincing. The choreographer Hanya Holm had left the great dancer Mary Wigman, founder of the Expressionist School in Germany, to set up her own premises in New York, and she became an immensely successful choreographer of New York musicals. Mary was her close collaborator and chief assistant for many years, but respectfully declined to renew the directorship, feeling ready to assume responsibility with the newly forming new dance group. Glenn Tetley stepped in to save the day. The dancers in the group dearly needed performing space to voice their ideas in the turbulent time of the late 1920s and 1930s. Poverty, social unrest was uppermost in people's lives. So, for dancers, choreography had to be their chosen medium. The search was for a new art form, and this they found through the then burgeoning modern dance. Votes for women were not yet a reality, and unions were in the hands of organized crime. Later, the organized syndicates were abolished, but the existing ferment had given rise to this dynamic art form, and real life was its expression.
Corpo, tutto il corpo, sì. Farlo vivo, farlo parlare, io devo vederlo parlare, il corpo, come se mi dicessi vai.
When I think of dance, I know what it can mean and do for the persons involved. I have lived that experience, those emotions, sentiments. How to transmit this to damaged brains and bodies was, metaphorically speaking, only a step away. Laban's brilliant move analysis and Carl Rogers' "Be that self which one truly is" led me to allow that secret body to emerge. Empathy, trust, and a non-judgmental approach. To bring out beauty meant finding solutions to enter their world and their body's secret life.
Io ero uno studente affamato di danza, sono rimasto folgorato. Quando ho visto Gillian per la prima volta, il suo fraseggio musicale era come un poeta sulle rime. Sono entrato in un mondo di danza, ma un mondo di arte.
Respira, sogna, chiudete gli occhi. State bene, fermi.
They have been very close to their emotional body in dance, less aggressive, less fearful of their surroundings and people. Releasing psychophysical tensions through harmonious movement is one of its many benefits.
Fai musica nello spazio, fai musica nell'aria.
How can they dance to music when they have no idea of it? Working gradually with carefully chosen music, sound and rhythm blend easily with the teacher's constant dance movement. Never once have the youngsters been disinclined to dance to Mozart, Bach, Grieg, folk songs. They don't have to understand. Music touches their emotional chords, and rhythm is the element joining dance to music. They are inspired to move thinking of animals and the natural world. The classical world has its proportions and rules. Our youngsters do not and cannot be guided or judged by such rules regarding perfection. But they can achieve a sense of beauty as they have discovered its essence through movement. Yes, they are quite capable of creating beauty through dance. The new teaching body must approach this experience in an open-minded way, not look for perfection, but participation. Even the gravely disabled will react to rhythm, touch, your voice. I was called to teach the perfection class in contemporary dance at the Accademia di Danza in Rome, meanwhile opening my own school for modern dance and ballet. Sooner or later, however, I knew I would return to performing, and this came about when Amodio assisted at my classes. Amedeo Amodio was a wonderful and charismatic dancer, étoile at the Scala and Rome Opera. So began our artistic partnership. This fusion of classical ballet and contemporary dance sparked off many performances together, notably the Festival of Two Worlds at Spoleto with our ballet Excursions 1967-68. Amodio took over the directorship of the Ater Ballet Company and invited me to hold the perfection class of young professionals at Reggio Emilia. At a certain point, I needed to get away from beautiful but chaotic Rome to a country town where I could pace my life differently. I found the Lake of Bracciano. It was the start of a new phase. I needed to offer my talents, but was not sure where. I found an Association for Social Integration, ICE, presented myself, and once there realized that it was for the diversely abled. And so I embarked on this new life. Many of my colleagues couldn't understand how I could teach even the severely handicapped without a specific dance technique. But I had already started to reach them through other channels, and that was empathy, respect, trust, and non-judgment. With psychologist Carl Rogers in mind, it was a brief step to applying the basic elements then of Laban, space, weight, time, flow, to produce a never-ending stream of dance movement. An amateur video was made of one of these classes. At about this time, Claudio Gasparotto, director of an established dance center in Rimini, Il Movimento Centrale, viewed this scratchy home video and was stunned to see not ballet, not modern dance, but a totally integrated form of dance specifically imagined for the handicapped.
Io ho visto un contatto artistico, ho visto la gente gioire, ho visto le persone danzare. E questo ancora una volta mi ha aperto una progettualità. Ho proposto a Gillian di codificare questo metodo, di dare la possibilità a chiunque lo desiderasse di fare una formazione. E così è nato il progetto Metodo Hobart, Conoscersi nella danza. Il metodo è nato nel contesto della disabilità, ma è emerso chiaramente che il metodo ha applicazioni più vaste, è emerso chiaramente che il metodo ha una portata educativa e così si è formato un team di educatori che ha declinato il metodo in vari ambiti, in centri per anziani, è un progetto molto interessante rivolto all'Alzheimer e attualmente in corso. Il metodo è rivolto anche a bambini di età prescolare, in classi e interclassi scolastiche, con giovani aggressivi.
Claudio and I are preparing, together with the team, to establish a professional training school in the Principality of Monaco, an artistic and educational endeavor for the betterment of the diversely able.
Gillian non fornisce risposte, ma attraverso il suo esemplare metodo pone le domande più importanti, fondamentali, per trasformare il caos in ordine, per sviluppare un'idea attraverso l'espressività corporea, il movimento danzato.
I do not carry out therapy. It is dance from beginning to end. I remember a beautiful old English song. I know where I'm going, and I know who's going with me. And with some luck, I know they will follow. I feel that the word is divine and the body is the miracle.